Alright, hi everybody. On the bench here we have a very unique type of AM/FM tuner, and this is from one of the viewers who sent in for an evaluation and possibly a restoration. And what we have here is a Pioneer TX9800. Now this was absolutely cream of the crop, top of the line at the time for Pioneer, and it has a lot of unique features. It is an analog tuner, but it has a lot of unique circuitry in it. Very cool. And I'm just going to put it up on a bench here and give it the first once over. The first thing I noticed was that the knob is you have to kind of push or pull on it to get it to grip at all. And a lot of the functions, when we turn this on, it's kind of hard to get it to lock in on things. You can hear. So we've got the sensitivity is not very good on this receiver at all. I'm on the same antenna that we were on with the SX1050 on the last video series, and it's just as you can see, it's kind of jumping all over the place when you tune around. So this one's not had anything done to it. I've noticed, I just did a quick check out, and some of the switches are really noisy. The tuning knob's going to need addressed. The locked and touch sense, there's actually a touch sensor on these ones that'll unlock and lock the tuning lock on it. The power indicator LED or light, whatever it is out. So there's a few things that need done. By the looks of it, looking down inside, and we'll have to take the cover off to see a little closer, but doesn't look like any work has been done on this tuner yet. But let's take it apart, take the cover off, and just kind of see what's inside, and then we'll talk a little bit about the unique design of this later on. So I figured I'd get this camera mounted, and we got it cracked open, and I can't tell, but I see some little indications that maybe the golden tweaker had been used on this thing. If we look over here, we can see this was kind of pulled back. Looks like somebody was in there trying to adjust it. These ones are not, but they may have been peeled off, I'm not sure. And just kind of looks like maybe somebody tried to do an alignment at one point in time, but I'm not sure. Not sure about this. It's very dirty. As you can see, look, it's just pretty dirty. So we have definitely have some cleaning to do on this. Definitely the receiver or the tuner will need recapped. And as you can see, there are quite a few capacitors in these, tons and tons of electrolytics. Looking down at these IF and RF tuner, alignment cans, I can't really decide yet whether it's been played with or not, but I will tell you the amplifier is the receiver is very, very weak. It's deaf. It's very unstable. It won't lock onto a stereo signal, and that tells me that we have some issues with the alignment. Now, the alignment issues could be due to components, or they could be due to somebody had tried to align it and didn't do it properly. But again, we talked about if your FM alignment is not set properly, if you get out of phase with your 19 kilohertz, your 38 kilohertz, being on center with your 10.7 megahertz IF, any one of those things will throw you off frequency, and it will radically affect the the sensitivity and the ability of the tuner to lock onto a stereo multiplex signal and all kinds of things. So at this point in the game, what I think the best thing to do would be, fix the mechanical problems, repair the tuner knob that's not working, that's loose, replace any burned out lights, clean any of the switches and potentiometers, do a complete recap, verify the power supplies are nice and clean and the right power and so forth, and then go through and do an entire alignment, total alignment of the system. So that's kind of where we are right now. I'm going to wait to hear back from the owner of this tuner. This is a really amazing piece of equipment when it's set up properly and working. Let me get out some documents and I'll show you. So here we have the schematic of a TX 9800 tuner, and this is unlike anything that you guys have seen me work on previously. First, right off the bat, you notice that there is more than one section of RF amplifier. So you have your RF amplifier. This looks very similar to all the other tuners we've serviced, the 750, the 1050, and so forth, even the 450. But now it comes through here and goes through another stage of RF amplification. When we look at filters, okay, we have a narrow band filter and we have a wide band filter, and those are all adjusted individually. We have some very complicated circuits for locking in on the channel and for locking in on the stereo signal. We have all kinds of adjustments to give us different types of selectivity and sensitivity based on where you are, what kind of, how close you are to stations, or if there's extra strong stations around. You have tools built into this that allow you to deal with that. But with that comes a lot more complicated circuitry. To compare it to something, like that SX 1050, the entire schematic of the 1050, amplifier, preamp, everything, tuner, everything, was on one page like this. This entire page is nothing but a tuner, to give you an idea of how complex it is. The alignment of this is way more complicated as well than is a standard AM/FM stereo tuner. But what happens is, when you are done, when this circuit is working properly, it is a superior tuner. It really is. It takes full advantage of every last bit of that FM signal that you can get. And it's very unique. One of the things is it has a touch sensitive tuning knob. When you touch the tuning knob, it picks up the noise from your fingers and kicks in it unlocks the automatic lock circuit that kind of centers you in and locks you in on the channel. And when you tune it, you get it roughly in, you let go, and pop, it'll pop it right on. Again, fantastic little circuit. So bottom line is, for right now, we're going to get a hold of the owner of this and see what their thoughts are on having things done, and we'll go on from there. Okay, so we're back here. I spoke with the owner, and he gave me the green light to go ahead and go over the whole thing and redo it. So we've gone through and we've cleaned up this knob, and now the lock, touch lock, works. Cleaned all the knobs and the faceplate and the glass, just wiped them all down. Put a new LED in the power on indicator, and did the customary recapping and cleaning of the board. So this transistor here, notoriously on Pioneer gear, gets really hot. The little puny heatsink that comes with it really isn't very good. As you can see, just a little chunk of metal. So I always upgrade them with these aluminum ones. They're a lot nicer. I mean, these get really hot. We're talking, you know, they're running close to 55 to 60 degrees Celsius, which is really hot to the touch. But that's how they run. I'm sure something better could be designed, but, you know, leaving everything as is, we just leave it like that. So we got all new capacitors in, and I have not touched the alignment, but it is tuning now. It's really unstable. If you even just barely move the knob, it just goes all over the place. Just the selectivity is not real good on this thing, so it's going to need a good alignment. So I'm going to go through and do that, and then I'll cut through parts of that and show it. I mean, I've kind of done enough videos on that already, but some of the unique things about this particular tuner, maybe I'll stop and add this into the video so that you can kind of see some of the things that sets this tuner apart from a standard AM/FM stereo tuner. So if that sounds good to you, hang in there, and we'll be back. Okay, so we're in the process of doing the alignment. And as I told you, I'm not going to go through the whole alignment with you guys, but some of the unique things I figured I would kind of show you. And definitely one of the unique things about this receiver is called the APC circuit, which is what you're looking at right here. Now, it's normally hidden under a metal cover, and we have the cover off. And what the purpose of the APC circuit is this is a special tuning circuit that when you're on FM, it will actually find a channel when you hover over it, and if you're within 40-50 kilohertz of it, technically it should be able to lock in and center on the channel. Now, its intent is to make it easier to tune in stations, but when it malfunctions, it does the opposite. It causes your station to jump all over the place, causes your meter to go crazy. Can be very, very finicky. What's more, the alignment of this circuit is very, very critical. This pot right here, I mean, literally it should be a 10 or 15 or even a 20 turn pot, and it is a 1 turn pot. And no, I'm not going to replace it because I have it tuned in, but it's very touchy, and it has to be set around 10 millivolts is where you set this pot for at the test point, plus or minus 10 millivolts. So basically what they're saying, it's got to be between 0 and 20 millivolts. Now that sounds like simple as turning this pot, but you have to understand this circuit is super sensitive. It has a local oscillator in it that's running at 100 kilohertz, and you align the 100 kilohertz with a frequency counter to make sure that that crystal oscillator is at the correct frequency, and it uses that as like a beat frequency to compare to the channel that you're trying to tune in, and then it kind of figures out the difference. If they're not within a certain multiple, basically it'll shift the frequency a little bit of the tuner to lock in on the center of the channel. But everything affects this. Just moving your hand around it affects the adjustment. Just barely touching the pot moves the adjustment by a large amount. What's more, the instructions are 2 or 3 sentences, but they leave out a lot of things that are important. Like, first of all, they want you to tune it down to 88 megahertz, but what they're really trying to do is get this thing to function without a station on it. And really the only way to get it to happen is to go on to 88 megahertz and then to go over to your antenna leads and literally short them all together to ground, the FM antenna. You have to short everything to ground, so there's absolutely no signal. Your signal strength meter should have nothing on it. And if you don't do that, as the white noise and the static comes in from the antenna, it will actually throw off that whole circuit. So that's the first difficult thing. So just to give you an idea, this is all there is to the adjustment. And here's all the little test points and adjusters. You would think this would be a simple process, but it took me almost an hour to get it to come in how I was happy with it. It looks to be working okay now, and we're ready to move on to the actual FM tracking, which normally is only a couple of steps, but once again on this tuner, here's the FM tracking. You can see there, clear up to there, all down here, until you get into your multiplex down here. So again, very complicated, because really it's almost like having two tuners in one, if you want to kind of imagine that, even though it isn't, because there's a setup for narrow band and a setup for wide band sensitivity, and they're actually kind of routed through two different little circuits to do that. So once again, this is a pretty complex tuner. When it works, it's excellent. And by the way, after doing the recapping on this, there is a noticeable, even with my bad ears, a very noticeable difference in the frequency response of this tuner, especially when it comes to the bass. It's not tinny at all anymore. The treble, the high frequencies sound a lot more crisp. It just doesn't sound like you're singing in a tin can anymore. So we're getting a lot of really good improvements out of this tuner, and I think when we're done with it, it's going to be awesome. But they really take a lot of work to get them to dial in. So I got the AM done, and I got the APC done of the FM. Now I'm going to work on the tracking and the multiplex. If I find a couple more, there's a couple more interesting things that'll come up, I'll try to step in and give you a shot of that too. But until then, we'll be back. Okay, I'd like to give you a little example here of how this thing locks in now that the APC is properly set up. So touching the knob activates the lock, and you see we find it. Watch this meter and watch the tune light. When you're on the tune light, let go, and the green lock light kicks in. And then it locks right in. We move down. And it will lock in. It'll center on anything you get close enough to, you can see. And even, now of course I don't have the signal meter and everything aligned yet, but you can see even weak stations it can lock on now. Before it was all over the place. You couldn't, it wouldn't lock.
Stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by.
So you can see I know I'm wasting a lot of your time here tuning through the dial. But we still haven't done the tracking alignment or the sensitivity alignment. But that being said, the lock circuit is working very well. So I just wanted to show you that. So we got that done. And even on wide band, which gives you a little better frequency response, it's holding really well and staying pretty quiet. So now to do the last part. Well, we have it all aligned, and it turned out really nice. This is a really sensitive receiver, and as I demonstrated earlier, basically if you get this thing set up right, it will lock in on those channels, as you can see, and it's really quiet. So turn some volume up here, and I'm going to pull the camera here and go handheld for a minute and show you some of the things that it can do. Okay, so if we look here, if we start out on the narrow band,
as I said,
not everyone was on the same
You
page.
can
on the
hear
decision.
it sounds pretty good,
I'll leave it at that. Everyone
but when
was
you
on the
kick
same
it to
page.
wide,
So Manny, bring me up to speed on those investigations. What did they discover until now?
even with those little speakers, you can hear that it does give you a lot more depth. Let's see if we can find some music here. Okay, that's a relatively weak station on narrow, and you can hear how that widens the sound and gives you better frequency response. That's not a very good channel for stereo. And by the way, the stereo portion of this was not out. It was right on. So and you can actually hear it switching between the different, the wide band and narrow band filters. That's why there's a little pause in the sound, because it's actually switching circuitry. So as you can see, the chassis cleaned up really well. The recap has been done. We put a new power transistor and a new heatsink, and boy, this thing still gets really hot, but that's the way they run. Been running this now for several hours, and it seems to be holding its calibration perfectly, and everything seems to be really working well. So we're going to call this one a wrap and put the covers on and do one last little once over of it with it all put together in all its glory. And I think this one will be ready to go back to the person who sent it. So I know this wasn't quite as interesting of a video as the last couple, but I thought there was a couple interesting things to see how these higher end receivers worked, especially with like the APC circuit and the wide and narrow filters and all that. So hope you enjoyed it, and we have some really cool things coming up here next, so stay tuned.